Our present will become the past of
We
other
are
men and
all
women.
in the gutter.
All publicity is good.
Crowd in my head and I'm lingering foolishly.
Welcome to 100 Years of Irish Poetry. Our poets are that of the bold, breaking their work up into history, religion, the land, folklore, and above all, love and passion. Our time has been broken up into two worlds, that of the poet and that of the history book. Let's hear what they have to say.
There's a whispering crowd in my head, and I'm lingering foolishly. You dead women in your graves, you made beauty long ago, but unceasing waters flow, and great unattending waves carry all things that we know. Are you nothing now but mold, cold and brown? You who are more bright than a crown, an amethyst, an emerald, and all that gorgeous red and yellow gold.
W.B. Yeats. Yeats was known as the romantic of the 20th century Irish literature, whether it be in the soil, in folklore, in its history, or his love for Maud Gonne. Tread softly as you tread on my dreams.
Down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow white feet. She bid me take love easy as the leaves grow on the tree. But I, being young and foolish, with her did not agree. In a field by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she laid her snow white hand. She bid me take life easy as the grass grows on the wheels. But I was young and foolish, and now I'm full When night started seeing, the fire brought a crowd in. They say that her beauty was music in mouth. And few in the candlelight thought her too proud, for the house of the planter is known by the trees. Men that had seen her drank deep and were silent. The women were speaking wherever she went. As a bell that is rung, or a wonder told shyly, and oh, she was the Sunday in every week. And oh, she was the Sunday in every week.
When he was asked by a journalist to describe the difference between poetry and prose, Brennan replied, "There once was a young man named Rollocks, who worked for Ferrier Pollux. As he walked on the strand with his girl by the hand, the tide went up to his knees." Now that's prose, he said, but if the tide had been in, it would have been poetry.
Brendan Behan, our old pet. Brendan is often remembered for his rebellious ways and his links to the Irish Republican Army, as well as spending time in prison and maybe having a drink or two. But in Brendan Behan's chest lay a gigantic, shy heart. Behan spent a lot of his time in Paris learning his craft, his structure of writing, and in that time, he gave a freedom back to Ireland with his legacy.
Uigness, loneliness. Blash smell a dove, treis báisteach, bhar an sléibhe. He dusht an frisún, fadil fuair na trainach. Cogar gaire birchlan an, dun ein aran. The taste of blackberries after rain on top of the hill. In the silence of the prison, the cold, sharp whistle of the train. The laughing whispers of two lovers, to the lonely. By Brendan Behan.
Patrick Kavanagh. A 40-year-old Kavanagh once fell for a 22-year-old medical student called Hilda Moriarty. Moriarty slagged Kavanagh one day, saying that he only wrote about the likes of cattle. Kavanagh said, "I'm going to write a piece for you." And there we have the poem that was Raglan Road. A number of years later, Kavanagh approached a young Luke Kelly and asked him to put an air to his piece. Luke Kelly thought about it and said, "The dawning of the day would go perfect here." So there we have the historical famous classic tune called Raglan Road.
On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and knew that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger, yet I passed along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November we tripped lightly along, the ledge of deep ravine where can be seen the worth of passion's pledge. The Queen of Hearts still making tarts, and I not making hay. Oh, I love too much, and by such is happiness thrown away. I gave her gifts of the mind, I gave her the secret sign that's known to the artists who have known true gods of sound and stone, and words and tint without stint, for I gave her poems to say, with her own name there, and her own dark hair, like clouds over fields of May. On a quiet street, where all goes meet, I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly, my reason must allow that I have loved not as I should, a creature made of clay. And when the angel woos, the clay lose his wings at the dawning of the day.
Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, snug as a gun. Mid-Term Break by Seamus Heaney. I sat all morning in the college sick bay, counting bells, knelling classes to a close. At 2 o'clock, our neighbours drove me home. In the porch, I met my father crying. He had always taken funerals in his stride, and Big Jim Evans saying it was a hard blow. The baby cooed and laughed and rocked the pram when I came in, and I was embarrassed by old men standing up to shake my hand and tell me they were sorry for my trouble. Whispers informed strangers I was the eldest, away at school, as my mother held my hand in hers and coughed out angry, tearless sighs. At 10 o'clock, the ambulance arrived with the corpse, stanched and bandaged by the nurses. Next morning, I went up into the room. Snowdrops and candles soothed the bedside. I saw him for the first time in 6 weeks, paler now, wearing a poppy bruise on his left temple. He lay in a 4-foot box as in his cot. No gaudy scars. The bumper knocked him clear. A 4-foot box, a foot for every year.
Poetry begins where language starts, in the shadows and accidents of one person's life.
Eavan Boland, the badass of the female Irish literature scene. Boland was tired of women being seen as decorative ornaments. So in the 1960s, she put her foot in the door, keeping it ajar for the decades to come for female Irish writers.
The pomegranate. The only legend I have ever loved is the story of a daughter lost in hell and found and rescued there. Love and blackmail are the gist of it. Ceres and Persephone, the names. And the best thing about the legend is I can enter it anywhere, and have. As a child in exile in a city of fogs and strange consonants, I read it first, and at first I was an exiled child in the crackling dusk of the underworld, the stars blighted. Later I walked out in a summer twilight, searching for my daughter at bedtime. When she came running, I was ready to make any bargain to keep her. I carried her back past white beams and wasps and honey-scented budalias. But I was Ceres then, and I knew winter was in store, for every leaf on every tree on that road was inescapable for each one we passed. And for me, it is winter, and the stars are hidden. I climb the stairs and I stand where I can see my child asleep beside her teen magazines, her can of Coke, her plate of uncut fruit. The pomegranate, how did I forget it? She could have come home and been safe and ended the story and all our heartbroken searching, but she reached out a hand and plucked a pomegranate. She put out her hand and pulled down the French sound for apple and the noise of stone and the proof that even in the place of death, at the heart of legend, in the midst of rocks full of unshed tears, ready to be diamonds by the time a story is told, a child can be hungry. I could warm her. There's still a chance. The rain is cold. The road is flint-coloured. The suburb has cars and cable television. The veiled stars are above ground. It is another world. But what else can a mother give her daughter but such beautiful rifts in time? If I defer the grief, I will diminish the gift. The legend will be hers as well as mine. She will enter it as I have. She will wake up. She will hold the papery flush skin in her hand, and to her lips, I will say nothing.
I am so clever that sometimes I don't understand a single word of what I am saying.
Oscar Wilde. I know he surpasses 100 years of Irish literature, but we just couldn't leave him out. He introduced so much to our Irish shores, be it through his freedom of sexuality, independent intelligence, or his companionship, all wrapped up into wit that we still use today. We are all in the gutters, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Beautiful star with the crimson lips and flagrant daffodil hair. Come back, in the shaking ships o'er the much overrated sea, to the hearts that are sick for thee with a woe worse than mal de mer. O beautiful stars with the crimson lips and the flagrant daffodil hair, O ship that shakes on the desolate sea, neath the flag of the one white star, thou bringest a brighter star with thee from the land of the Philistine, where Niagara's reckoned fine and Tupper is popular. O ship that shakes on the desolate sea, neath the flag of the one white star.
Imelda May, as well as being an Irish breakthrough female artist, Imelda May has brought spoken word into the Irish mainstream. You Don't Get to Be Racist and Irish was a 2020 piece by Imelda May, looking at our own history of emigration and looking at the mixed race country that we live in now today.
You don't get to be racist and Irish. You don't get to be proud of your heritage, plights and fights for freedom while kneeling on the neck of another. You're not entitled to sing songs of heroes and martyrs, mothers and fathers who cried as they starved in a famine, or of brave-hearted, soft-spoken poets and artists, lined up in a yard, blindfolded and bound, waiting for God point-blank to sound. We immigrated, took refuge, cannot refuse. When it's our time to return the favour, land stolen, spirits broken, bodies crushed and swollen, unholy tokens of Christ nailed to a tree hung round your neck like the noose of the free. Our colours pasty, our accents thick, hands like shovels from mortar and brick. The foundation of cities you now stand upon, our suffering seeps from every stone your opportunities arise from. Standing on the shoulders of our forefathers and foremothers who bore your mother's mother, our music is for the righteous, our joys have been earned, well deserved and served to remind us to remember more blacks, more dogs, more Irish. Still laboured leprechauns mix paddies and louts as we shout to tell you our land, our laws are progressively out there. We're in a chrysalis state of emerging into a new and more beautiful era. 40 shades better, unanimous in our rainbow vote. We found our stereotypical pot of gold and my God, it's good. So you don't get to be racist and Irish.
Sasha Terfous, spoken word queen. From New Ross to New York, Word Up Collective, Mod Words, Sasha Terfous has stole the Irish spoken word scene, looking at topics such as culture, mixed race, femininity, grassroots, love, passion, and beyond. Sasha is a name that we'll hear long from now. She is the grassroots of the Irish spoken word community. Let's hear what she has to say.
I soften my voice and dull my accent. I leave long pauses between each word, extending the gaps in my syntax, leaving enough room for entire cultures to thrive. When you are the child of an immigrant, you learn to sing in a language that is broken and crooked. They will ask you about your song, and you will hum out of tune and off key, your tongue swollen with the words family. They will ask you to sing of it, but the notes will freeze in your throat, dangle in the silence and the cold like a first winter, like the knocking of knees and the sounds hands make as you rub them briskly together. When you dance, it will summon the rains and the snowfall. You will be told to hold your feet tight, to silence your toes. But you will dance in grey clouds, each limb celebrating the reign of kings and queens alike. Foreign lands nestle in the palms of your hands, and your belly, it is stuck in the rhythm of mama's cooking, churning like grandmother's hands, nimble fingers sewing blankets and throws that don't quite warm like they used to. And they will speak of great poets, inventors, and musicians, discuss the greatest stories ever told. But when they ask you to speak of the tales that comfort you, all you will respond with is home.
And there we are, a glimpse at 100 years of Irish poetry. And although we're living in an entirely different Ireland now, it goes to show that the freedom of poetry remains as important now as it did then. Thank you.
I've never seen a situation so bad that a policeman couldn't make it worse.
Experience is simply the name we give to our mistakes.
Our present will become the past of other men and women.
I credit poetry for making this spacewalk possible.
Well, what poetry means to me, or working with words as a playwright myself, I'm not brave enough to tackle poetry just yet, but it's a form of self-expression, really, isn't it? And many things are ways to express yourself. It's a kind of a reflection of the universe through you. If you look at the stars in the sky, they're expressing themselves in some form or another, I presume, or look to be. So isn't that what we're trying to do? We're just as valid as the stars, where we came from. One way to express yourself is through words, and is art in many things. Get to a deeper sense of yourself through expression and our shared experience. That's what I think anyway. I might be a load of bollocks.
Written word means to take your emotions and put it down on a page so it has a more physical form. That's what it means to me. Yeah.
I suppose poetry is about getting across a concept or an emotion or a feeling or something that has happened. I'm thinking of a piece that I wrote myself, and the words were so simple for children, but it got across it got across what I wanted to get across. Maybe that's what poetry means to me.
Poetry has meant that I can express my innermost emotions that I've sort of previously been sort of like embarrassed by or ashamed of, that I can express them in a way that makes them appear accessible and even beautiful to other people.
Written word and poetry is a very important start to my day. I read a poem every morning, maybe two. I find it's almost like a morning prayer. It does something in the head, and it sets you up for the day. It's a small moment, it's an important moment, and it's a positive moment.
I think for me as a whole, words and poetry, from my own experience, is a life source. It is that driving power in my own existence that pushes me to go forward, and it inspires me to be a better person. It inspires me to achieve more and to want more for myself, for the generations that come after me, and for the world around me.